Wow, what a fantastic group of people. Amazing. And so amazing to be here with a true superstar, Chris.
Well,
unbelievable.
I, of course, feel the same way. I guess we're going to talk to each other. I'm interviewing you, you're interviewing me.
That's the idea.
Oh, it's going to be great. I'm going to start, actually. It is exciting to be here. It's amazing what you've pulled together, Niklas. I just want to get clarity about something, because you did something very strange and very difficult a few years ago. It feels like everyone who's known a measure of success ends up at some point asking themselves this question: what do I do with my life from here? Do I keep on pushing, going for more success? Do I somehow at some point make a decision to do something else, to in some sense give back to the public good? That is an incredibly hard decision for people to make. You made it seems to me, more confidently and more consequentially than most people manage to pull off. And I want to know how. What was your experience in making that decision?
Good question. I think, I was part of building Klarna. I was brought up with this idea that the more money, the more happiness. I totally bought into all commercials and marketing in the world, and I really wanted to be as happy as the ones I saw on the posters, right? But then what happened was that overnight I was able to sell off some secondary shares. So I was by then financially independent. I went to Las Vegas to celebrate. I bought all the things you can ever imagine. I changed my fake Rolex into an authentic one.
Thank God.
Yeah, no, it's not, yeah. But really living the life, order French wines I couldn't pronounce and so on. I mean, Dolce Vita, for real. Back in the hotel room, I crashed. It was so evident that buying all of these things was just not the recipe to happiness, at least not for me. And research points in this direction. It's like strong correlation with money and happiness up to a certain point, and then it's just a diminishing return curve. So I had some kind of an existential crisis in that hotel room in Las Vegas. And that started also to question on what I actually had created with Klarna. I don't know how much you know about Klarna, but it's a buy now, pay later product. It's good in some sense, but you could also see it in a view that we put people into debt, and we also contribute to overconsumption. Overconsumption on a planet that we need 4 of to sustain the average consumption of here in Spain or in Sweden. So clearly like a realization that I'm probably part of the problem here and not part of the solution. So maybe it was driven by guilt. Maybe it was driven about some kind of idea that, yes, you have a compounding effect of wealth creation. It seems like the norm is to just accumulate as much wealth as possible, and then you're going to hand it over to the next generation. But all the examples I saw among my friends that have been brought up with money, they just lost motivation. I didn't see them more happy than other kids. So why do I want to pass that on, that responsibility, to my kids? Didn't make sense. Maybe I changed my mind when they are grown up and angry that I give it away instead.
I mean, a lot of people have a version of that experience, and yet nonetheless can't quite find the will to actually do something radical about it. You, within a couple of years of that, I mean, you cashed in more money and actually gave away, as I understand it, pretty much half of your net worth into this foundation that's made all this possible. Half. Almost no one does that, because there's this thing that we have in our heads called loss aversion. Like, most people are going, yeah, I'd love to do that, but it's a one-way thing. Once it's gone, and maybe I might make a better decision later on. People don't find the ability to pull the trigger. You somehow pulled the trigger and did that. Was there a moment? Was part of it that you could picture something really exciting to do with the money through the foundation? How did you make that decision?
I think it was actually a particular moment in time. I was with my co-founder Sebastian on a vacation together with our wives in Italy at the moment. And we started to talk about Klarna and the vision and so on. And I always had like a 2-year horizon, only 2 more years, then I will hit this valuation or whatever. And then I will be recognized and acknowledged, and people will see me and so on, all these shadow sides that I care. But then at this moment, he actually said that, you know what, I don't want to do this for 2 more years. I probably want to do this for life. And I was like, wow, for life? Never. Maybe I should only do 2 more years, or maybe I should quit now. I mean, I can't quit now. That's unbelievable. So that night, I was actually up and dancing until 3 a.m. with my earphones, just being able to realize I could actually take this decision to quit now and do something else.
So is that why we have dinner and then dancing tonight? Like we're trying to trigger a few more decisions like this.
Exactly. So everyone on the path of accumulating as much wealth, maybe they get some kind of realization as well. That would be fantastic.
Be very careful what events you go to.
Yeah.
As I say.
But Chris, I mean, your career has been completely astonishing. I'm dead sure that a lot of people here want to know what kind of actions you did take to go into this path. Because TED is run as a non-profit, or have you all been able to accumulate wealth as well that you're trying to save for the future?
Yeah, complicated. TED is a non-profit. I was brought up as a missionary kid. My parents, I was born in Pakistan. My parents were missionaries in Pakistan, Afghanistan. I grew up in India, went to school in India, but always being taught, that life is about more than shopping. It's like you've got to live for something bigger than you are. And it was both a duty, but also a sense of that is actually, you're never actually going to be properly happy unless you do that. You'll have a false happiness of consumption or something like that. So that was always a bug in there. I didn't know what to do with that for a long time. I mean, I ended up being a journalist and started a magazine company, and then the magazine company grew like crazy in the 80s and 90s. I took a company public at the end of 99, just before the tech crash. And so for a while, I thought I was this rock star entrepreneur and, like fabulous wealth, 2,000 employees and whatever. Dot-com crash hit the company hard. I had to let go half the company. I felt like a complete failure and miserable. But over the next 18 months, basically went to the point of bankruptcy nearly. However, I had put money into a foundation when times were better, and I had this opportunity to buy this thing that I'd fallen in love with, which was TED. It was this conference in California, technology, entertainment, design. It was just very inspiring because people were talking because it was multidisciplinary, people were speaking in a way that made their knowledge accessible, and it was just had already become like a community of people dreaming a bit about the future. I thought I'd come home, loved it.
And you bought it from your foundation and not private?
That's right. So the foundation, I don't know, I couldn't afford to buy it. If I could have done it personally, maybe I would have. It's a very good thing I didn't, because it was the fact that the foundation owned TED that forced this dilemma a few years in. So roll the clock forward to 2006. I've left my company, licked my wounds, and just about managed to persuade the tech community to come to this conference. But we had this, because it was owned by a nonprofit, there was an obligation to do something for the public good with it. And so when online video came along, we finally had this opportunity to actually share the content for free online. And should we do it? It felt crazy from a business point of view, because you could kill the conference, because why would people come to a conference if the content was available for free? But I think, would I have done it personally? I honestly don't know. But we took the risk because it was a nonprofit. We gave away the content, and to our surprise and delight, the content went viral, and it actually increased, not decreased, demand for the conference. And so it put this bug in my head that we're in an era where the rules around what you hold on to and what you let go of have changed. And we decided we'd operate TED on this sort of theory of radical generosity, if you could think of something to give away, try and figure out how to do it. So we gave away our brand in the form of TEDx. Anyone who wanted to could apply for a free TEDx license, and then they would run these conferences at their risk. And people thought we were crazy. Harvard Business Review ran an article saying how TED lost control of its crowd. And we were going, yeah, but that was actually deliberate. And even though there were a few hugely embarrassing moments when, speakers or whatever who we would not have hired ourselves, overall, the amazing thing was how good most of these events were. People, because they were empowered, put huge effort into building something great. And so today, we have more than 3,000 curatorial teams around the world. Right now, at this moment, there are probably more than 50,000 people volunteering for TEDx to put on these events. It's overseen by 10 full-time staff in New York. They're producing 25,000 videos a year, 1 billion views online. Like, you could not do a media company this way. So it just, wow. it got me obsessed with... So we ended up in different ways of the idea of letting go. With you, by letting go of your money and putting it into a foundation that empowers entrepreneurs, you are transferring your creative and entrepreneurial energy into 1,000 new forces out there in the world. And we both believe passionately in the power of entrepreneurs to change the future. This is not a lesson that is adequately embraced by business, I think, that in this connected age, the smartest strategy that you can adopt is a generosity strategy. That is your best shot at owning the future, is to let go what you may think is the most precious thing you have. Maybe it's knowledge that you alone have. Well, why not have a university that gives it away to people? Yeah, some competitors might find out, but you will also start recruiting the best talent in the land, and you'll have people who want to partner with you because they know that you are state of the art. There's just all these things that are different when you think about the power of letting go.
Yeah, and you even wrote a book about this, among other books, which was Infectious Generosity.
Right, that's right, and it's based on this idea that it was partly based on an attempt to get over the sickening realization that the internet, far from being the force that was going to bring the world together, which is what I dreamed of and believed for 10 years, was turning into the force that was driving us apart. And that made me sick to my stomach. So the book is an attempt, in part, to say, how do we reclaim the internet? But a key part of it is that in the connected age, organizations, companies, even individual artists or creatives or whatever, can flirt with this generosity strategy and maybe be amazed, because if the pandemic taught us anything, it's that the tiniest little thing, like a little virus, 1/1,000,000th of a gram, can shut down the world economy if it's infectious. So if we could figure out how to make good things be infectious, we could reclaim the internet as a force for good.
And would you be able to name an example of infectious generosity that worked very, very well?
I mean, online, there are countless examples of people who have, by giving away something, they have attracted a big audience. I mean, during the pandemic was one of the most amazing, where on Facebook, an Australian woman who was in despair at the sort of the isolation of people, started this thing called the Kindness Pandemic, just as a Facebook group. And this thing exploded, and you had 500,000 people sharing just stories of human kindness. One of the curses of modern media and the algorithms of the internet is that it dials up people who deal in the language of threats, and have convinced us all that life is threatening and that the other side are there to kill us, and our only obligation is to be nastier to them. Actually, under the radar and in the right circumstances, there are countless stories of human kindness. And if you give them a chance, they will spread. And so seeing this happen in the pandemic, and people, you go on that site, you read it, and you cry, and you think, wow, I actually like the human race after all. So there's examples there. There's lots, seeing the next generation on TikTok in many cases doing surprising things, like acts of kindness can easily go viral. Arguably, even Mr. Beast, you can criticize him, but he's built this huge following of people who are responding to his crazy-ass acts of generosity at scale. It's a strange world, but it's hopeful, I think.
And going back a little bit to TED, I had two questions. First of all, I mean, the power of storytelling is so important, especially for everyone in this room, actually having super meaningful, important, impactful companies. Do you have any advice how to tell your story? What has worked very well at the TED Talks you've been involved in and running this platform?
Yeah. I mean, I think the single biggest thing is to view your talk as an act of generosity in itself. Most people come to the stage that I've got this opportunity, I've got to promote my company. People see through that and they immediately go, oh God, you're pitching me. And it's distancing. For something to really have impact, an idea from your head has to flow out into the minds of people there where it will replicate and possibly change their lives forever. You have the potential to give them the single biggest gift they can have, which is a powerful idea that they can use. And so if you start with that and think, what is the gift I could give? Then sure, if this gift is being expressed and shown and encapsulated in the work that your company is doing, you can mention that as an example of it. But don't pitch it. Use that in service of the gift of the idea. You know, I have found that when you distribute energy in this particular way, it suddenly makes so much more valuable. For example, our company's been able to do this, but others should do this wherever you are in the world. You know, it's like share an idea. That's really the number one thing.
Is this also part of the guidelines of a TED Talk that you push people to go through so that you avoid having thousands of hate speech, 20-minute videos out there?
Yeah. It's usually, people say less, pick one thing that you can go more deeply into. Have a consistent through line to the talk that is pulled or anchored in an idea that will be of value to people. And so everything in the talk should be a service to that. So start with why this is a problem in the first place, and start with curiosity. Why? What interested you in it? And what was the roadblock you ran into? And then what was the aha moment? And so take us on a journey that makes us see, okay, that's why this is interesting. And then people can get excited. Above all, what you shouldn't do is come on and say, I'm going to inspire people. You know, like talks that are first and foremost about inspiration are nauseatingly off-putting, honestly. Like, and we suffer from this sometimes. It's like, it really is. So inspiration is not something that you aim for. What you aim for is authenticity, passion, courage, truth, insight. People will figure out the inspiration all by themselves.
Beautiful, beautiful. And do you have any advice for Norrsken or this movement of impact entrepreneurship, how we can go viral, or how this can be infectious generosity?
Well, first of all, you already are. I mean, it's phenomenal. You know, by the very process of creating a space and saying, come here. If you've got something good to build, come here and do it. I mean, that is the fundamental move. And if you could put a time machine out into the future, you would see, and the tragedy is that you can't see all this now, but you would see all these tendrils spreading out in many, many, many directions that ultimately could touch many, many millions of people around the world, all because of an idea that incubated over a cup of coffee in this space. So I mean, I think I'd just say, just dream big. You know, like it's the amazing superpower that humans have is to reshape the future in our minds, and then canvas that and share that and explore that with other people. And when you see the spark of excitement in someone else's eyes, it says, "Oh, no, that's good. Could I work with you on that?" Woohoo! You're off to the races. And no other species can do this. The absolute tragedy of the current moment is that we are spending so much energy just in power struggles, you know, my way, your way, my way, your way. These are zero-sum fights. Some of them, I guess, matter, but we're missing out on what is much more amazing, which is the world of possibility. I love this this sort of notion of the adjacent possible. Every time that there's a new technology, every time a new group of people comes together, there is a new set of adjacent possibilities that we can explore. And so just think about that, because those things hold the potential for the future. And I just think that they're massively underexplored.
And it's actually the place we are in right now is actually an example of infectious generosity. My former CEO at the foundation, Eric, is a phenomenal speaker. We were in an isolated house just in Stockholm. And he held this introductory speech to a group of people coming from Spain. And one of those people was actually Thomas Meyer, listening in to Eric's story about Norrsken and what we're trying to accomplish, and said that, hey, why don't I try to enable this for Barcelona, my city? And here we are. So this is actually only thanks to Thomas and the incredible team that you have here in Barcelona. So, and what I think makes it extraordinary is that he said, like, I don't need to put my name on it. I don't need to put like any logotypes or brand whatsoever. I like what you guys are doing. I don't need to take any credit. So, but it is really you that are behind this. I think it's extraordinary generous. Thank you, Thomas.
So this is so amazing. So this is an exact example of a powerful idea spreading. It's seen to be powerful. It can extend. And this is how civilization is built. This is an amazing thing. Do you have a story of like one entrepreneur whose work where you've seen it spread from a seed in one of your incubation spaces and having real fruit? I mean, I'm sure you have more than one, but
yeah, we do. We have a similar house in Rwanda. We have one in Stockholm and here as well. So I think about 3,000 people more or less connected to Norrsken, either by an investment or that have been a member in the house. And it's so many beautiful stories. And that's why I think...
Tell me one from Rwanda.
Ooh, now you put me on the spot here.
You can come back to it later if you want.
I'll come back to it later. I can mention one story from Stockholm. It's this wonderful couple, Linnea and Robert, had this idea how to make trucks electric and autonomous to solve the issue of transportation. And that was the idea that was born in the Norrsken House, just them two working, and that is now Einride. So one of the leading electric truck autonomous deliveries maybe even in the world.
So isn't it one little buzzy idea, like a few neurons firing in someone's brain, a few years later, tens of thousands of tons of emissions avoided and more to come?
Yeah, exactly. And people see that, wow, so this is a new definition of success. This is a new role model in society to build an impact unicorn. That's how we should get real spotlight and attention. And I cannot even think how many they have inspired in their turn, which I think been very, very good.
One thing that's interesting, just in telling that story, one reason why so many people are locked into just, I've got to pursue the growth of money more than anything, is just that there's a lot of human psychology around productivity and, the more you can win at the game that you think is the game. So it's not really the money, it's the status, it's the sort of feeling to yourself, I've done better than other people, whatever. So if we could, to the extent that we can change the game and make the heroes of tomorrow, the people who have spread ripples of impact, then you've got a whole generation come through. That's the game I want to win. And actually, to some extent, that absolutely is what's happening. And the more we can make it explicit, the better, I think.
Yeah, and this is the entire idea with this cathedral that we're sitting here, to actually spread that. What is the definition of success? If that can be not how much wealth you're accumulating, but how much good you can do in the world, I think everything will change.
Yeah. So your unhappiness level, since you abandoned, money is associated with wealth, you abandoned half of it. Are you half as happy, or are you?
That would not be that infectious, right? No, I'm twice as happy. This is like the most egoistic thing I could ever have done for myself, to actually do something truly meaningful. I never felt as much happiness as I feel now. So this would be my number one recipe to everyone.
This is the weird thing about human psychology, is that experience of acts of generosity resulting in happiness is widely reported. It happens to everyone, and yet it's invisible to most people. Most people don't know that to be true. It's very, very weird. Like evolution, if you like, has put that into our makeup because it wants, in some sense, to reward generosity. But there's all these other things in as well, like this sort of this fear of giving away, and we want to protect our families and all the rest of it. So it's that itself, I think, is an idea that needs to be out there more. Of generosity is a muscle. If you exercise it regularly, it becomes easier, and you get to know for yourself the glow, the glow that happens when you do it right. And I think a lot of it is, there's this weird dance we have to make. Tell me if you feel this is right, between our head and our heart. Because the glow comes from when you see like a single person benefiting, you see a single person's life light up. That makes your heart glow. And that's why there's a tendency for a lot of philanthropic giving to be very sort of almost small scale, like you just help one person or a family or whatever. To actually make the most difference in the world, you need to wise up a bit and sort of try and think strategically and say, what can I do that would really scale? But you don't naturally get the same, like just from that in itself, you don't get the same psychic reward. And we almost have to teach ourselves to take delight in that part as well, to be proud of the fact that we are not just givers when the moment strikes. You see a TV ad, you write a check, someone on the other side of the world's benefit, you feel good for a minute. But rather to say, no, I'm going to be strategic about this. In the book, the hardest thing I probably invite of wealthy people is to consider taking the tougher of the two traditional pledges that religions have recommended. Christianity and Judaism recommend like a tithing, 10% of your income. Islam has a different tradition, which is to recommend giving away 1/40 of your wealth each year, 2.5%. If the world's billionaires and millionaires did that, it would raise so much money. You could tackle basically every single one of the challenges that humanity faces. We actually ran the math on this. Like it would release about $10 trillion, which is about 10x the amount of philanthropy that's out there right now. If you cut that in 3, and you still have enough to rescue the world's forests and tackle inequality and tackle hunger and tackle nuclear energy and meat substitutes and all of the, pick your issue. But it's and from the individual's point of view, by shifting to an annual commitment, there's a lot of noise about the sort of the lifetime commitments that, for example, the Giving Pledge makes. Eventually I will give away half of what I've got or 90% of what I've got. But eventually it doesn't mean anything because it's always the never, never. The hard thing is to say, how much will you do each year? And to build that in. And for a rich person to give away 2.5% their net worth each year is incredibly hard. It's a lot more for them than 10% of their income. You gave away freaking 50% one year. But it's very hard to build that in. But if people can, that strategic giving, that will encourage people to give smart as well as giving from the heart.
Absolutely, and especially hard since we have all of these like rich lists out there. Then they will lose out on that game, and they will maybe not look as good as their friends or whatever. So it is hard. But the question is then, what will happen if we don't do this?
Yeah.
And we all know that we will use as much energy and materials the next 30 years as we've done the last 10,000 years. It's just so obvious. Can we continue to play this game of getting as much as we can forever? No, not possible. And we're already now crossing 6 out of 9 planetary boundaries. So are you optimist or are you pessimist? Do you think we will make it?
So I'm a determined optimist, right? So that's viewing optimism not really as a prediction, but as a determination to find a pathway that can lead to a hopeful future, and to shine as much light on that pathway as possible. I mean, the amazing thing about the future is that it literally doesn't exist. Like I personally don't believe there is any entity that has determined what the future is. It literally is, there are so many variables that will go into shaping it, including the decisions made by people here in this room right now. It is totally up for grabs. What we know is that the delta between good futures and bad futures has never been higher. We're creating AI, which ultimately can give potentially a single individual the power to take us all out, or indeed solve the world's hardest scientific problems and take us all forward. AI itself may decide to take over from us. All bets, in one way, all bets are off. But I think there is a pathway forward to a sustainable future. I think what will have to happen is that growth, to some extent humans need growth, but instead of growth of atoms that we suck out of the earth, it's growth in creativity, it's in ideas, it's in delight, it's ways in which we can joyfully imagine cooler aspects of the future. There's no limit to that, and that doesn't inherently create energy. I think there's pathways to energy itself becoming ever cheaper, and as that happens, that opens up huge other pathways to, for example, I don't know, massive desalination, greening the deserts. I can picture a future where humans move to cities, shrinking humans' footprint on the planet. There's lots of, like, the climate issue is solvable. It's a solvable issue. I think it will be solved by companies doing the right thing, and there's a whole other story there, and investors have a huge role to play in that, and entrepreneurs. But AI is a huge challenge, and there are many other huge politics, interestingly, I don't think is the single most important thing. I think at the end of the day, politicians come and go, ideas are forever. Right now, what's happening in AI is far more significant than any political story you might have heard recently. And I think we'll shape our future much more powerfully. And I think we're right to be fearful of some of that and to pay close attention to it, but also to be quite excited about it.
So, Chris, we're going to have an amazing party here tonight. So I wish we could end on a very positive note, which you enabled. So with that said, thank you so much, Chris. This was a great conversation. Thank you so much for being here.
And thank you, Niklas. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right.